and the Palestinian people under occupation. I'm consistent.
No, you're not.
Simple.
They're totally different situations.
You have to say that because you're not consistent.
And you have to say what you say.
No, but I literally described it. 2 people's under foreign occupation, 2 people's having their hospitals bombed, 2 people's having their kids killed, 2 people facing governments to say genocidal stuff. Yeah, I'm consistent.
One is a...
Bro, somebody get Piers Morgan out of there. He is getting bodied. Like how you invite somebody on your show and you just getting whooped up. You know what I'm saying? Like, this down goes Frazier. Like, that's literally what's happening right here. All right, so when it comes to the Israel and Palestine conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, it is important that we continue to make sure that we're trying to listen to voices that know what they're talking about. All right, and I know with social media, like, it's just you're getting drowned with a lot of people who have a lot of opinions and a lot of statements and a lot of emotion and feelings, but they ain't read not one book, they ain't read not one article, and they trying to tell you what's factual and what's false. You know what I'm saying? Like myself, I'm on my 2nd book now. I've done listen to hours of both sides. I done listen to the Ben Shapiro's, and trust me, that was hard to listen to. But I done listen to the Mark Lamont Hills, who actually studies this for a living. You know what I'm saying? They ain't no just, I'm just now getting into the conversation. He's been on this conversation for a long time. Like, I think he said like 20 plus years. So I would think he knows what he's talking about, right? So it's important that folks like myself can admit, say, hey, I'm still learning some things. I can still base, my opinions and my perspective in some of the conversations. But when it comes to the history, when it comes to knowing what causes and the effects in the players on both sides, when it comes to that, you need to shut up, be quiet, and learn some things. And that's exactly what we learned with Piers Morgan. Yes. Good old Mr. Piers Morgan, who's like, both sides, both sides need to be, both sides, okay? Piers Morgan and Mehdi Hasan. Oh my God, this dude is amazing. I find myself just listening to more and more of his debates, not just on the Israel war, but just on anything, because you can tell he spent a lot of time learning the situation. He's not just talking just to talk, you know what I'm saying? So, let me see. Let's go ahead and switch here. This is a 53-minute conversation. Of course, I'm not going to go play by play. I just ain't got time like that. It's like, what, about to be 9 o'clock? I got work tomorrow morning. So, we just going to point out, 3 points here, and we're going to have conversations with that. So, like always, go to Piers Morgan. I'm pretty sure you already know who that is, so you can watch the video, all right? So let's go ahead into the first one.
You always downplay anything.
Hold on.
You just can't say, it's just not true.
They would say there was a ceasefire.
And it's not true.
We'd say otherwise.
The facts say otherwise, Piers.
But what I've noticed with you is you always downplay anything which might be deemed by Israel to be provocation.
No.
You're always
not at all. Did I downplay October 7th? I don't think I ever have on your show or anywhere else. No, but, it's a horrible crime.
But what you do, in your debating style, and it's an impressive debating style, but you always pivot back to, but the real problem's Israel. Yeah, but the real problem's Israel.
Hold on. If we're going to talk about styles, Piers, you're famous for interview style that begins with condemn this group, that group, that group. On Monday, 500... Hold on. Let me finish my point, then you come back in. 500 people were killed on Monday. 100 women, 50 children. I assume you condemn that and don't support the killing of civilians in Lebanon, right? 500 people died. That's the equivalent of 30,000 Americans or 6,000 Brits in a day.
Sure.
And yet we started this interview with Hezbollah Charter. So if you're going to talk about styles, you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Okay.
I'm going to focus on 500 people dead.
Okay. Let me come back to the week before, where 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists were targeted specifically.
How do you know that?
What do you mean? How do I know that?
You just said 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists were targeted.
How many was it?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Made the claim.
That is what's been reported.
By
Do
who?
you dispute that?
Yeah, I dispute everything Israel says.
They lied
for a year,
You don't know the real number.
But I didn't give a number. You did.
Well, what has been the number from the other side?
I didn't give a number. You said 3,000 terrorists. I'm wondering why.
That is what's been reported.
No, it's not reported. It's what's said by Israel, or it's what's said by people speaking on behalf of Israel.
So
was a little girl who died?
Hang on. Israel hasn't even said it did it.
They have in private. It's been reported widely. No, to the American government.
Okay, but don't say they said it publicly. They haven't.
But
obviously, I believe they did it, right? But
I believe they did it
but
too.
You're saying they said this in public.
You just gave a 3,000 number, and I'm wondering. I just saw a little girl's funeral last week. Was she a Hezbollah terrorist in your view?
No.
So then why did you say 3,000 terrorists? There was a kid killed.
I was about to say that in the process.
And I know it could be nitpicking. That was my first thought, was like, why is he nitpicking every little thing that he's saying? But you have to understand, sometimes people's framing of a question or a statement or what they're perceiving as a fact can skew the whole conversation. When he said 3,000 something terrorists, well, there was plenty of innocent people who died. Those weren't terrorists. The little girl, I mean, I know some people were like, hey, she was a terrorist because, you know, she blah, blah, blah. But you can't frame your question like that or your statement, because now you're placating that 3,000, justifiable deaths were, justifiable. And it's like, nah, let's get into the details. And that's why I say sometimes the details you need to get into, because that's how you're going to better, formulate a solution or at least an understanding of what's happening. But if you just said 3,000 terrorists died, then you'd be like, all right, well, that sounds about right. That sounds okay, right? Because if they were all terrorists, then like, go ahead, wipe them out, But unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
So targeting very specifically in an extraordinarily whichever way
in a terror attack.
Well, that's what I'm going to come to. So they target 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists with their pagers, walkie-talkies, and so on. In the process, a small, comparative to that number, a small number of civilians get killed, which is obviously deplorable. But my point to you is, if someone's been chucking rockets over for a year at you and your people, you've had to displace 60,000 people from the north of your country because of his relentless bombardment, and you eventually respond in such a precise, targeted fashion, right? And in the process, some civilians are killed, which is never acceptable, can never be condoned, never be supported. But if it is right, as has been widely reported by all mainstream media, that 3,000 terrorists
people associated with Hezbollah. Not everybody in Hezbollah is a terrorist.
Okay. But, okay.
Like a driver, a nurse.
3,000 members of Hezbollah were targeted, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that is, some people have claimed is unlawful?
Yep.
You've said it's a terror attack, so you think it was illegal.
Yep.
But I would say that's not. I mean, I would say that if you look at that in totality, they are responding to rocket attacks all year, and they are being extremely precise, unlike what they've been doing in Gaza, where I do not accept that Israel has been doing this precision targeting they keep talking about, and I've held them to account for that. I do think in this particular occasion, they were extremely precise, and it was a brilliant piece of warfare, right, if you want to call it that. Notwithstanding, I don't like any war, nor do you. But my point is, surely that is justified. I mean, in some parts of this, you have to say Israel's entitled to defend itself.
So actually, Lebanon is the one that needs to defend itself, as we say, 500 people killed on a day. Look, you are right. You have held. I've watched your interviews with Israeli spokespersons. You have held them to account on their nonsense about casualty numbers. But let me just say three very brief things on that. Number one, you said just a moment ago, when they eventually respond, you use that phrase eventually. That's just factually inaccurate. We already discussed.
No, you talked about
82% of the attacks. They have been bombing Lebanon for a year. Now, you can say who started it, whatever. I'm not talking about. But they've been attacking Lebanon.
But this is a significant escalation.
Yes, but 5 days after October the 7th, or 6 days after, they killed a Reuters video journalist in southern Lebanon, a man called Issam Abdullah, killed, according to Reporters Without Borders, targeted by Israel. According to the UN, a war crime, right? So they have been killing people in Lebanon who have nothing to do with Hezbollah for a year now. So let's not say eventually. Number two, I would say, yes, it's an act of terror. And that's just not my view. You know Leon Panetta, former Obama defense secretary, former head of the CIA. When the former head of the CIA comes out and says Israel is committing an act of terror, I think we should take that seriously. But it's not just him. A group of UN special rapporteurs on human rights and extrajudicial killings put out a statement.
But many other
saying,
people have said it was not an act of
course, and
terror.
that's the problem with international law. People can argue it all ways. You know that you and I are not lawyers, but we know that lawyers can argue multiple things.
But do you not think that action was justified?
No, of course not. I don't think you should booby-trap devices. it's against international law to use booby traps. I think I'm actually petrified, separate to the politics of the Middle East, Piers. I'm actually petrified at the ability of governments to use technology and surveillance to track us and now kill us. I think there's a wider discussion to be had. I think the idea that Israel keeps opening the doors to all sorts of new precedents that other governments will run with and we will regret. I think, going into the supply chain of devices, phones, beepers, whatever, pagers, I think that's very, very worrying. I also think from a practical point of view, it's not targeted. If you blow up a guy with a pager, even if you think he's a terrorist or a terrorist leader, you don't know if he's driving, he's at an intersection, he's about to crash his car into children crossing the road. We saw them going off in grocery stores. It's taken out people's eyes, fingers. No, I don't think it's targeted. I think it's barbaric. I think it's illegal. And I also think, look, I say this all the time. Even if I was an Israeli, I would not support this. It doesn't make Israel safer. Do you think Israel's safer today?
Would you support then any military?
They just fired a rocket at Tel Aviv.
Let me ask you, would you then, by your criteria, is there any military response that Israel can give, first to what Hamas did on October the 7th, and second to what Hezbollah has been doing ever since? Is there any military response Israel can do which, in your eyes, would be justified?
Well, I don't accept the loaded question. You say response. Israel is the aggressor in all of these places. As I say,
they are illegally... the aggressor on October the 7th, was it?
Well, it was actually, because it was occupying Gaza and it was besieging Gaza for 20 years, and even in Israeli general.
You're sounding like you think it was justified what Hamas did.
No.
It's one or the other.
Why? How is it justified?
So it wasn't justified.
Of course not. I've said that many times.
So was Israel not entitled to respond?
No, but I'm questioning you use the word response. Response implies everything starts on October 7th.
No, I
don't accept your timeline.
I've never said that.
Well, you keep saying response.
To that specific terror attack, in a way that if in England somebody suddenly launched an attack on our people and they killed 1,200 and wounded nearly 7,000, I would absolutely expect my government to respond with substantial force. Would you?
Yes, but Britain...
So you would?
Hold on. But is Britain occupying territory in that scenario? Because that's the key point here. It's Shlomo Brom...
It's dangerous wording.
It's not dangerous, because I'm
making it sound like... I don't disagree with you.
I'm going to quote... If you let me finish, before you keep suggesting I'm supporting October 7th, which I have not...
Sounds like you're justifying it to me.
You're saying they're being occupied. They're being occupied. They are occupied, and they're not occupied.
I think they probably are, yeah.
Not probably. The ICJ says they're occupied. Shlomo Brom, who's one of the former top Israeli generals, one of their big strategists, said after October the 7th, what did you expect? If you keep people under military occupation,
is that what you think?
They will rise up. Yeah, of course. There's always going to be terrorism.
What do you expect?
Yeah, there's always going to be terrorism and violence as long as you oppress people.
On that scale, you expected that?
No, obviously, I don't expect the details, but do you expect Palestinians to fight back? Of course you do. Everyone who's sane, who looks at this conflict from American presidents downwards, would say the root cause of the violence has to be ending the conflict.
I agree.
So then, talking about tit-for-tat responses,
but I also think if you go back
All right, so this is the one thing that really annoys me with this whole entire conversation, and it always boils down to this particular conversation here. Israel has been occupying Gaza. Okay, like if you say they haven't, then I'm not gonna take you as a serious person, all right? And then October 7th happens, which everyone who is sane condemns. So that's not the issue. The issue is, does the Palestinian people have a right to fight who's ever occupying them? And I say whoever because if it's Israel, if it's Egypt, if it's anyone, do they have a right to fight their occupiers? The answer is yes. Because if in some crazy universe, some crazy multiverse where Mexico or Canada is occupying the United States and however they achieve that, definitely I'm going to fight back, especially if they're controlling our water, our food, our businesses, our economics, just our way of living. They're continuously bombarding our area, the places we live. If they're continuing doing that, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't. And I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you wouldn't want that either. So the whole point is, if you believe that Israel is occupying Gaza, what do you think is going to happen? And for anyone saying, "Oh no, you're Hamas, you're saying that Hamas is okay," and okay, you're an idiot. You're stupid. And people like you need to get shipped off to some island and just fight for your survival. Okay, you are not a real human being, and people shouldn't waste their time with people like you. But what I'm saying is, what do you expect to happen when human beings like you and me are occupied and under the worst living conditions for decades? What do you think is going to happen? Most people are not going to just roll over and die and say, "Hey, this is all I got. This is how things are going to be." Here in America, how do you think slaves reacted with their slave owners? Read a few books. Come on now. Read a few books and you'll quickly find out. Black folks didn't just roll over and just accept this as the way of life. No human being is going to accept that. So it has nothing to do with Hamas. It does, because Hamas, they know the situation and they're taking advantage of the anger of Palestinian people. They're taking advantage of that, and they're using that for their own selfish hatred agenda, whatever they have. Hey, they don't like Jewish people. They don't like Jews. Okay. But they know that they can placate and they can utilize the anger of the Palestinian people, because who wouldn't? Just like Mehdi said, you're not making Israel safer if you're continuing to occupy these people. You're only going to push these people into radical people's hands. You're easily recruiting people into these type of organizations. How is that hard to understand? I'm just a regular YouTuber guy and I understand this. It's not complicated. It's human nature. So, I mean, come on now. Jesus Christ.
That's the start in 1948, which I've had many scholars on from.
All right, so let's go to the next point, because man, we could go on this forever, bro. All right, 24:15. All right.
Who cares what Israel says? They've lied for the last year. They've lied.
Who cares
for
what they say?
Yeah, do you care what Russia says?
No.
This is what I'm saying. You're inconsistent. The occupier and the invader doesn't. I don't care.
It's not a barbaric.
So if you're a liberal democracy, first of all, they're not a liberal democracy, and second of all,
well, they are.
No, they're not. They're an ethnocracy. But even if they were a liberal democracy, you don't get to invade other people's land. That's not an excuse. Piers, you sound like you're justifying an illegal military occupation here.
No, I'm not.
You just did. You said they're a liberal democracy. Sounds like you're justifying occupation.
You're extrapolating two things together. Why?
I said it's an occupation. You said, but they're a liberal democracy. Sounds like a justification.
I'm just coming back to one thing, because I'm curious what you think Israel could do that would pass your test.
It's probably not much. I'm as close to a pacifist as you can get. I think you only use force
is not
to defend yourself.
Everyone else to attack you and to rape and murder and pillage you, to fire rockets all year.
Who's raping and
You don't think that's what Hamas did in October?
I thought we were talking about Hezbollah. You're jumping around.
I'm talking about both.
You were talking about Hezbollah a moment ago.
Well, it's the same. To me, it's the same.
But that's the problem. To you, it's the same. Everything's very simplistic.
Let me explain why. You have two.
Lebanon is way more complicated.
To me, you have two groups of terrorists funded by Iran. They both are wedded to the existential removal and disintegration of all things Israel, and they're prepared to use a lot of violence to achieve that.
But not as much violence as Israel has used to occupy their land for 50 years in the case of Gaza and the West Bank.
So your argument is whatever Hamas has done and whatever Hezbollah does is justified.
No. The only person justifying violence here is you, Piers, not me. So I've not justified any violence today.
You've happening.
Justified terrorist attacks via pages. You seem to have justified the occupation. You won't even say occupation.
I do think the specific targeting of Hezbollah in the way that they did it...
Do you think it makes Israel safer?
That's a different question.
Well, that's the question that matters to me.
I think Israel feels...
If there's no point doing all this, and at the end of the day, the war continues. I want to end the conflict, Piers.
So, of course, maybe this is...
Well, then escalations don't help. Israel is briefing the press, Piers.
Just saying, I want it, or I want peace and joy. You sound like Kamala Harris.
No, actually, Kamala Harris is funding Israel. She supports you, so that's the problem.
There you go.
Support me?
She supports your position that Israel has a right to do this stuff. It doesn't have a right to do this stuff.
They have a right to do all of it. I've never said that.
Oh, you pick and choose which bits?
Yeah.
What do you think they have a right to do?
I think that they have been disproportionate in their response.
That's very
to Gaza.
vague. What do you think they're allowed to do in Gaza? You made me very specific. What do you think they should specifically do in Gaza?
I think in Gaza that they were the victims on October the 7th.
You've already said that.
I know.
What should they do in Gaza?
So I think they are perfectly entitled to go after Hamas. What they're not entitled to do, in my estimation, is to level the whole of Gaza to the ground in the way they've been doing. Nor can they move vast numbers of Palestinian civilians to specific areas.
Those are war crimes.
And then bomb those areas as well.
And those are war crimes,
So on those, on those
and
things,
those are war crimes, yes?
Probably, yeah.
And what about in Lebanon?
Man, come on, bro. We gotta stop. We gotta stop this, man. This is another thing that drives me crazy. Is Hamas Hamas bad? Yes. Should Hamas be killed? Yes. Should Israel be able to be safe and secure? Yes. Should Gaza be occupied? I don't know if it is. Is Israel committing war crimes? Maybe. I don't bro. Be consistent on both sides, bro. There's no one on either side of this conflict with clean hands. It's simple. Why are people complicating this? I don't know if it has to do with is Piers Morgan getting paid by Israel or some sort of organization? Because it sounds like a no-brainer answer to me. He literally just said you should not be leveling entire cities. That's a war crime. That's called collective punishment. You can't do that. You can't tell people to compile into an area and then strike that area like Israel did. That's a war crime, right? But no, we don't want to say that, right? Because I don't know. I'm saying it, but how come everybody else seems to not understand that? I don't know.
In Lebanon,
They just killed 500 people.
there is, to me, a big difference.
50 children.
I'm about to answer you. I think there is a big difference between what they did in the targeting of the pages and what they did with the airstrikes, which were far more indiscriminate and killed far more civilians.
I mean,
and my question for Netanyahu, if he would dare to do an interview with me, which he now won't, but if he did, I would say, what are you trying to achieve here? Because it seems to me you're just leveling Gaza, killing tens of thousands of people in the process.
Trying to stay in office.
You're never going to finish off Hamas completely. You're certainly not doing anything but, in my view, fueling their ideology. And you have no plan for what happens in Gaza afterwards.
Agreed.
And you have a bunch of right-wing nut jobs in your
We finally
cabinet
agree.
who actually do speak in quite a genocidal way. All of that I agree.
They are about Lebanon too, by the way.
And Benjamin Netanyahu. One day I'm gonna get his name right, but I mean he's probably not even important enough to get his name right. But he said some genocidal things about the Palestinian people. So let's not pretend. Why we keep pretending like his quotes aren't literally recorded? It's not something someone heard who told somebody who told somebody who told somebody else. It's his own words. And it's public information. Why are we pretending like he's not trying to show who he is? Pretty simple.
You know that, right? They're speaking about Lebanon in a genocidal way too.
I think there are people there who just want total war with everything to do with Palestinians.
But don't you think someone like you with
Hezbollah.
your huge platform should be calling that out consistently?
I do, but I also
No,
think...
you just gave me a whole thing. Iran backs Hamas, Hezbollah, terrorism. That just sounds like an Israeli narrative.
You take one side completely.
Just like you do in Ukraine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm consistent. I take the side of the Ukrainian people under occupation and the Palestinian people under occupation. I'm consistent.
No, you're not.
Simple.
They're totally different
Well,
situations.
you have to say that because you're not consistent.
And you have to say what you say.
No, but I literally described it. 2 people's under foreign occupation, 2 people's having their hospitals bombed, 2 people's having their kids killed, 2 people facing governments that say genocidal stuff. Yeah, I'm consistent.
One is a...
Bro, somebody get Piers Morgan out of there. He is getting bodied. Like how you invite somebody on your show and you just getting whooped up. You know what I'm saying? Like down goes Frazier. Like that's literally what's happening right here. Do not invite Mehdi Hasan to your show if you don't know what you're talking about. If you can't stand on your business, if you can't stand on your opinions and your perspective, you are going to look like a fool. And that's exactly what Piers Morgan is looking like.
Democracy and an ally of the
Says
West,
you.
and one is
Oh,
not.
ally of the West. What little slip in there? What's that got to do with anything? So allies of the West get to be genocidal.
No,
Why did you say ally of the West? Why is that relevant?
I don't believe what they're doing in.
So if Russia was an ally of the
No,
West, they could
hang
kill
on.
people in Ukraine.
I don't believe what
Wow.
they're doing in Gaza is genocide. You do, I don't.
Well,
genocide is the complete.
Put genocide to one side.
destruction of
Whether we
people.
agree or not on genocide, and it is genocidal.
It's not
You just
genocide.
said they're your ally of the West. Why is that relevant?
I think it's important that you support.
So if you're an
allies.
ally of the West, you get to kill kids.
No, you get.
So why is it relevant?
You support.
You're making my point for me, Piers. I'm consistent. I don't care whether you're an ally of the West or an enemy of the West.
Fine.
I care about what you do.
Yes.
And Russia and Israel both committing war crimes, both saying genocidal
Yes,
stuff.
but Mehdi, here's my point. You are so blindly anti-Israel that you frame everything.
I could say the same thing to you about Russia.
I'm very blindly against Russia.
Okay,
yes.
then so again, so you're inconsistent. I'm consistent. I'm blindly anti-occupying Russia that occupies Ukraine, and I'm blindly anti an Israel that occupies Gaza. By the way, another area I'm consistent is I do think both wars need to come to an end, and they're going to come to an end through some sort of negotiation. I don't believe in prolonged conflict. I don't know.
Hey, whoa. that was, hey, Piers Morgan. Cut it out, bro. Hey, Piers Morgan, you need to hang that up. You need, it's I hate when people try to say you can't be biased, you can't be this, you have to be neutral, and you have to, if one side is occupying another side, and you know what occupy means, is, that's a whole nother conversation. Go ahead and look that up, all right? Either you're okay with it and this conversation is not for you. But if you understand what that means and you understand the lifestyle of the people being occupied, what that brings, you would not be okay with that. And no matter who's the occupied and who's the occupier, you would think whoever's being occupied should not be occupied by the occupier. You know, that's bad thing. Okay, I gotta talk to you like you children. You can't bully people, right? Simple. I'm pretty sure your parents told you that. You can't be a bully, and you can't bully people smaller than you. So now you get mad when the person you're bullying punches you back. Now you can't be trying to break their toys and act a fool. You have to be consistent. Hamas needs to be dealt with. If that means destroying Hamas, or if that means capturing them so they can get, be trialed, whatever the case is, I'm pretty sure Israel's not going. They probably just want to kill them all. But if Israel had correct morals behind this war, which I don't think they do, but if they did, they have every right to go after Hamas. Hamas did bad thing on October 7th, and they need to face whatever justice finds them first. Simple. But Israel cannot continue to occupy Palestinians, wherever they're going to be, because they ain't going to be in Gaza, because Gaza ain't going to be a place to live at this point. They can't continue to do that, or they're going to continue to not be safe, because you're going to continue creating Hamases. It's going to be another form of Hamas later on that you're going to have to continue to deal with. That sounds pretty simple to understand. It's not rocket science, guys. It's not complicated. Just do a little critical thinking, okay? Just put yourself on both sides of the situation and then come up with an opinion. It's not hard. But once again, if you guys think I'm wrong, if you think Israel has the right to just bomb indiscreetly and just kill whoever they need to kill, because Hamas is not like wearing football jerseys that says like Hamas #1 quarterback or whatever, like, and they just need to just wipe as many people, as many Palestinians as possible to be safe. If you believe that, sweet God Almighty. Go ahead, leave a comment down below. I'm probably gonna regret this, but leave a comment down below. And like always, let's have that conversation.